again, my friends. In this series, we're talking about the roadblocks in spirituality, in coming to know what I am, or what Vedanta calls self-knowledge. And we've talked about really the capacity to understand the relative nature of reality, the relative nature of appearance, the world, where we take to be outside of ourselves. That what we think of reality as absolute never is. So we sort of at some point exhaust the fantasy of spirituality, and there is sort of a maturity, and we begin to see the relative nature of appearance, the relative nature of experience. And when that takes hold, that has the effect of having the bottom fall out of our absolute perspective of reality, of appearance, of experience. We notice how we have always taken appearance as absolute. And in noticing that, there's a freedom from that. In noticing that, it is no longer the foundation or the paradigm that we have. We've also talked about dispassion, about sort of a detachment from all these things that we took to be so real, noticing the conceptual nature of reality. Everything is a concept, noticing that everything that we have invested so much into really is a concept. Some of the most cherished things are found to be false. And in the inquiry is taking a look at these things and having the ability to notice the conceptual nature of things. And in noticing the conceptual nature of things, they aren't taken so seriously anymore. They're not invested in absolutely. They're useful, but they're not taken to be absolute reality. Ultimately, there's a dispassion even towards experience. That experience comes and goes. And in combination with the relativity, we see that experience is never really good or bad. Good or bad is a relative judgment. But that doesn't really exist. That's only an inclination. It's only a translation, a relative translation. So we really begin to see the falseness of relativity, the falseness of what we take to be reality through the conceptual and the relative nature of it. But we also sort of have practical maturity, if you want to call it that. There's sort of a composure. We don't really bite into these fancy spiritual things. We don't have to wear beads, and we don't have to do all these things. We're not carried away by this fantasy of spirituality. We're really sort of grounded in spirituality at this point. Things come and we don't really get carried away by them as much. We've sort of come to more of a grounded point. Really through investigation of the previous two qualities, if you'd like to call them that, there's really a grounding. The things that once bothered us don't really bother us as much. The things that we got upset about before don't really bother us as much. We sort of start getting grounded. The small things that happen really aren't inflated. They're really kind of seen in their context. The relativities once again are seen. And he did this to me. We start to see the relativity in that. We start to see that that's my judgment of it, but that's not necessarily the absolute reality of the situation. He has a perspective also, and maybe he is unhappy and he lashed out at me. Maybe he's having a bad day. So we have the capacity to sort of see the bigger picture instead of inflating it from my own perspective. That's an opening up really of a more holistic or big picture or compassionate viewpoint. Being able to stand in the other's shoes. And that ego, we might call it, is lessened sort of naturally because we've sort of seen through all of the things that used to bother us, and we are able to try to see it from his viewpoint. So we're really sort of grounded and more open. And we've blown through all the spirituality, all the fantasy, all the chasing after experiences. We've blown through all of that, and we've come to rest in the conclusion that if I am limited, then there's no solution. There's no sense in seeking wholeness, because my very existence presupposes that is false, that wholeness is false, that there is either I am limited, or I am limitless, that I am already limitless, that what I am is either limited or limitless. If it's limited, there's no sense in chasing spirituality. If I'm limitless, then the only problem is my ignorance of myself, the ignorance of what I am. And ignorance can only be resolved by knowledge. Knowledge of what I am, self-knowledge, or realizing what I am. That's the only solution. Therefore, we are one-pointed in our inquiry into the nature of existence itself. Is it limited? How am I taking it to be limited? Because the only possibility, the only solution to the problem is that limitless is already the case. So how am I taking it incorrectly? Where is that ignorance? Where is it? How is it built? How is it constructed? How does it come about? Because it's the only thing which seems to obscure what I am, the ignorance of myself. So it is seen that the only way to resolve the problem is to come to know what I am through self-knowledge. So in the next part we will continue to discuss this. Love to you, my friends.